are joined by Dr. Elaine Leader and Miguel Ramirez, part of the founding group of TeenLine, a teen-to-teen hotline and one of the longest-running therapy services at Cedars-Sinai. Over the past 40 years, this hotline has grown worldwide, and listeners have received around 8 million calls and counting. We are also joined by Stephanie Samuels, a fellow Norman, whose experiences on TeenLine fueled her desire to further help those struggling. She created COPLINE, the only international and confidential hotline for law enforcement officers and their families. Through their lifelong work and dedication to helping others, my guests today have played a major role in saving more lives than we could ever imagine. So thank you all so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So Dr. Leader, if we could start with you, can you tell me a little bit about how TeenLine started and why you felt it was so important to get this started in our community?
Well, it got started because I recognized, along with Miguel, who was my co-therapist at an adolescent group we had at Cedars, that teens really responded well to their peers. We facilitated it, but they were able to help one another. That's how the nomenclature Teens Helping Teens came about. We followed that up with having had a call from the mother of a student from Beverly who said her daughter said she'd like to find a phone line that she could call where she could get help. And this mom was a therapist and called me and said, is that something that you could do through Cedars? So we held a symposium and invited members of the community who work with teenagers in every kind of setting to come, and we gave them a questionnaire. One of the questions was, do you think there's a need for a teen helpline? And they all said yes. So then we had focus groups, including a wonderful focus group from Beverly with a number of teens, students. And they were so enthusiastic, most of them ended up becoming our first trainees. So that's how it started. But in order to get started, we had to have some money. So I had to write a grant proposal, which I'm not used to doing. But we were very fortunate in that the mom, whose daughter originally asked about a hotline, was a trustee of a private foundation. So I wrote the grant proposal, and we got $49,000 to start,
Wow.
and we were off and running.
That's awesome. And Miguel, can you tell me a little bit about your role in the inception of TeenLine and how you worked with Dr. Leader to create such an amazing organization?
Yeah, Elaine had many co-therapists in training at Cedars-Sinai Department of Psychiatry at Thalen's clinic. And she felt like, they didn't quite measure up to what she really needed for the adolescent group. So Elaine went to the director, Dr. Saul Brown, and said, I need a really good therapist to be able to run the group because we're having other problems that are cropping up and it's not working out. So Elaine said, I want him, which is me. And Elaine had known my background, that I came from girls' family treatment at Central Juvenile Hall and running groups there and doing family and multiple family group there. And I had done a juvenile diversion program at Cedars also. And then I went from adult into family and child and worked in both departments, and Elaine said, let's do this program together. When we started initially, we formulated a program called the Center for the Study of Young People in Groups. That was our umbrella group. TeenLine was going to be one of the branches from this group, along with school consultation and community consultation to agencies. And that's how we pulled together. So there were actually 4 co-founders of the TeenLine: Dr. Elaine Leader, Dr. Terry Lipton, Hank Bornstein, and myself. And that's our basis for the group. And initially, Terry was our mentor who kind of oversaw us doing the group, and then he said, you know what, you guys are way ahead of me. So he says, you guys keep doing it. And vis-a-vis that program, Elaine and I also came up along with Terry the idea that kids talk to kids quicker than they talk to anybody else, whether it be parents or people in the clergy or aunts or uncles or whatever have you. Teens talk to teens quicker than anybody else. So
It's partly developmental. At that stage of development, teens are moving away from being dependent on hearing from their parents. They want to hear from their friends.
and so they have more confidence or trust initially to go to other teens. So vis-a-vis what we learned from group and what we experienced, we wanted to translate that experience in working with teens to be able to listen and hear and assist other teens when they called in. And that's kind of the basis of where we drew our information and our background and our knowledge from to be able to create this type of program.
There's another factor that I think is very important. We call our teen volunteers listeners. We don't call them peer counselors because they don't give advice. And that's part of the wonderful active listening that they do. They learn how to speak in the training groups that they participate in. They learn how to communicate so that they're not telling somebody what to do.
Or how to do it. Mm-hmm. And they're really listening for how the person feels about certain things and be able to help that person explore the feeling and what their options might be, but it's not them giving advice.
And how do you guys arrive to feel comfortable to allow a teenager to speak to somebody who is suicidal and is having such dangerous thoughts? How are you sure that that teen can handle such a heavy topic?
Well, the training is intensive, and it's 65 hours of training. Before that, they've had to fill out an application that's 5 pages long.
Very lengthy.
And go through interviews. They had an individual interview, and then we had
And a group interview.
Group interviews.
And the parent interview.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a intensive screening process. And we get teens applying who, some of them have had issues themselves or family issues. And they have learned that it's important to discuss problem areas, not to bury it.
And Stephanie, you were one of the first ever listeners of TeenLine. You were involved in the creation of it as one of the focus groups. Can you tell me a little bit about what your thought process was joining this new program that is so heavy and intensive and brand new?
Well, when it came across through Beverly and they had asked, who would be interested, it was just something that I absolutely gravitated to. And as a teen, I was struggling myself with different issues, and knew that the first person I would ever want to talk to was a teenager, that my parents just didn't get it, that they were very set and kind of their way or the highway, so this seemed to be a great avenue. And from the focus group, I was really kind of blessed to be able to not only work with Dr. Leader, but Pat Wisney. Dr. Wisney was then doing the putting together of
She was a training coordinator.
the training. And one of the things that was just so marvelous about TeenLine, which is just so important at the crux, is they cared. They cared what a teenager had to say, whereas parents were like, what do you know? They absolutely embraced teens. They wanted to make sure that they were doing the right thing by the population they were trying to serve. And what a gift. So I was able to work with Dr. Wisney, who wanted to make sure that whatever was in this manual was going to be accurate for teens, and they didn't do it as adults trying to think of what it would be like for teens. So I was able to do that and was able to do some of the outreach in the beginning for them, and it was just, it became something that, for me, felt very comfortable, very natural, and I knew if I could figure out how to navigate my own life, that it would be something that I'd want to do, help people, kind of career-wise. So, and Elaine played a lot of different roles in my life over the many years, and, you know, having both of them here, you know, Miguel and I were talking, we haven't seen each other in 39 years, yet I know I could have recognized him anywhere, but, you know, kind of time melts, and Elaine, anytime I tried to do something, she was kind of like, she's always been my buoy in the water, that no matter how high those tides are, I would always somehow or another reach out to Elaine, and no matter how busy she was or is, she always managed to find the time to lend an ear, talk through situations, and allow me to do a process of what I felt was best. So truly for me, this is one of the highlights of my life, is having them here and being able to truly tell the story of TeenLine, because you don't want it to be lost, and it's going to be 40 years old, and we're doing, they have something in April to celebrate it, but it's kind of rewarding to still be this young and to realize 40 years ago you were part of something that became so amazing and has helped so many people. And I have children, when they went through high school, I live back east, we didn't have a TeenLine, but they always knew about TeenLine and the importance of it, and so that's been unique as well.
And Elaine has, as you just said, has been such a listener to you, has been really a role model to all the listeners that have come through this program. How has she and how has your experiences with the program shaped your career path, and what is that career path, if you could speak a little bit more to it?
So I'm going to share with you something really personal that goes back to when I was answering lines at the time. You know, I was struggling with my own autonomy, different issues and stressors as an adolescent. And I had been struggling with an eating disorder, had not told anybody, and I was supposed to be on the lines that night. And I had purged and ended up in the hospital. And I remember calling Dr. Leader and knowing I had to do it and knowing what the outcome was going to be. And I said to her, you know, just so you know, I'm at Cedars, you know, this is what happened. And when I tell you, without skipping a beat, Dr. Leader said, we'll just transfer the phones over there tonight. I was like, what? No, obviously they couldn't do that. But what that did for a young girl struggling was it allowed me to have those struggles and to still be a together young woman that held value, and that my world and what was so important to me, which was TeenLine, was still intact. And that really, I believe, helped me survive and flourish and become the person that I am today. So I went on, I went to UCLA, got my first master's in clinical psych from Antioch, ended up moving back east. They were not licensing master's levels clinicians back east, ended up doing a second master's in social work and became a licensed clinical social worker. And I ended up working with police officers. Out here in California, I did a lot of ride-alongs. So when I went back east, I ended up continuing to do some ride-alongs. And then when I moved out to New Jersey, we had just had quite a few suicides, and went to the police academy and said, you know, who's dealing with, you know, the different stressors that officers go through, you know, what they see, untimely deaths, child-related incidents. And they kind of looked at me like I had two heads. And they really said, nobody. And that became kind of my mission for what's been the past 30 years, is to make sure that officers get the help that they need. And the more I rode with officers, it was the same thing. Officers trust officers. They speak the same language. They understand the stressors. They have the gallows humor. They deal with all of these different things. And I thought to myself, what an amazing idea to take what I had for so many years, to have retired police officers that could talk to active officers. And for us, the reason for retired officers needed to be, it was twofold. One of them was that as an active officer, if another officer is involved in an illegal activity, they would have to breach and they'd have to do something. So so they couldn't be active. And the other thing is we were looking at retired police officers that also had a high suicide rate, that there's a mandatory retirement age, and many of them took with them such a wealth of wisdom and experience, and that they really wanted to give back to their own. And you know, hence this marriage was going to be made. So the first time I did it, I legislated, I wrote legislation, and went through that whole process and spoke to Dr. Leader many times. And I remember her saying, you know, well, when you're calling it, you know, this, you need to make sure that you trademark it. So I trademarked it, and there was a whole thing that went along with that. And after that, that mission was drifted. Ended up founding what's now an international hotline called COPLINE, which is in the United States and Canada. So it is active police officers that call in, and their families and loved ones. That's manned by retired police officers that are trained and vetted in a very similar way to, you know, what we know is so tried and true. And when you have 40 years worth of something that has worked, you just don't reinvent the wheel. You just tweak it to fit the population that needs to be fit. So I always say to Elaine that she is the grandmother of a hotline. So she is the grandmother of COPLINE.
We've also worked quite a bit with law enforcement at TeenLine. We trained the LAPD juvenile officers how to intervene with suicidal teens and their families, and we still do it. We've been doing it since the 90s. We've trained DARE officers. We've trained El Segundo Police, Santa Monica Police, and of course they're well known with the LAPD.
Awesome. And so that's about 2 hotlines that have come out of TeenLine. Are there any more that the community can reach out to? You said previously there's one for parents that it's coming.
It's not a hotline for parents. It's part of TeenLine. It's to educate parents about adolescent issues and how to recognize a teen that may be depressed or suicidal. And we did a program also with the LA County library system. So we do more than being a hotline. We do a lot of educating. And our website is phenomenal. It's teenlineonline.org. I love looking at it myself. We have all kinds of activities on the website. We have blogs, we have videos, we have a place for parents, and place for the community. Teens can email to the page and get a correspondent back from another teen from anywhere. We've had calls from New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, Nigeria,
Sweden.
Sweden.
That's incredible. So this is really worldwide, and over the past 40 years, there's been millions of calls that have been fielded. So you guys have touched many lives. Did you guys envision 40 years ago that this would become such a worldwide program and something that can help?
Well, I did want to tell you, many, many years ago, I had a fantasy of developing a program that would have a huge impact, but I had no idea it would be this and this great. And I'm very proud of the program. I'm no longer the executive director. My title is founder. But I still go into the office a couple of days a week for a few hours, keep my finger on the pie.
One of the things with TeenLine where they've got it's different is for COPLINE, we were not able to have any grant money to start us up or any federal funds because of confidentiality and officers' concerns about who might get information or whatever if they call. So for us, it's a little bit of a heavier lift to try and get people to fund. And that's been something that, that we struggle with, and yet we know that it's so needed. And with the environment changing, just to try and get the word out there and to get help has been somewhat difficult for us, but unique. We have fundraisers. I know you guys do too, but we do like a midnight run for the call. So at midnight, and in New Jersey, on New Year's Eve, it is freezing out, so that we've got officers and families that will fundraise there. We've had Houston, Harris County Sheriff's Department that has raised money for us, and we've got a golf tournament out here. But that's been a little more difficult. But the integrity of these lines, like the integrity of TeenLine, it's so important that you take care of the population and that you don't chase the funds, because integrity can't be bought. And that's been something that's really, with teens in particular, and certainly with police. And you can do 1,000 things right. As soon as you do one thing wrong, that's it. That's all they remember. So that's been a little more difficult than with you
I didn't
guys.
ask you, Stephanie, are you publishing anything? Because, we publish the Youth Yellow Pages, and it's now an app. And we also have an app called Teen Talk. We've moved with the times, and for years we published the Youth Yellow Pages as a handbook, and it was distributed through the LAPD as well as other agencies, and we updated it every 2 years. Now we update it. Technology has moved in. So it's now on the website. You can get onto the Youth Yellow Pages with all the resources you need as a teen.
We just started doing a public service announcement. As a matter of fact, as a gift. I mean, Romeo Carey has just been unbelievable to COPLINE and in helping do that. And we just did a public service announcement a couple weeks back that we're hoping to be able to get on some of the law enforcement shows and stuff. And it was just heartening that Blue Bloods just aired, and they just did a whole thing on suicide, and how impactful it would be if Tom Selleck would be able to do a public service announcement while sitting around at the table with the family, talking about his family and then all of the law enforcement family that's out there. So we're still trying to figure that out.
That
Would be fantastic.
And that one man can make truly an impact on a world. So and Romeo did such an amazing job with us. We got Joe Montagna who did it from Criminal Minds and all the other stuff. So so that was wonderful, and just getting all that out there. So we have almost twice as many officers that die by their own hands than die in the line of duty a year, and we know that one thing certainly can be stopped, the other unfortunately can't be. So
I think what's terribly important is for what the volunteer gets out of the program they're in. It is so rewarding and so enlightening,
so true.
and leads them to contribute to the community in different ways. We did a study of some of our alumni on our 25th anniversary, and there was one in Maine running a bookstore. There was one in Chicago on a hotline, and then they were all, and of course the wonderful Stephanie. But I mean, they go on, and some are doctors. I mean, they go on to have wonderful careers, including one who was the head of Disney Films.
Wow.
Yeah.
On a personal level, I can talk about the impact on my own two children who went through TeenLine and their development and their experiences on TeenLine has really helped them become aware of other people's issues and feelings and be able to listen and to respond appropriately. And they will often come back to me and say, I remember learning about that on TeenLine or talking about that topic on TeenLine, and it's been impactful in my daughter's business and even in my son's business, and working with people and doing groups and other types of situations that they deal with, and even conversing with their friends. They still use the skills to this day about what they learned about how to active listen and being able to reflect and whatever have you that allows people to talk about their issues. So personally, I've seen a major growth in my children from the me stage to what is it with you? Yeah.
So I'm going to piggyback on that. So the active listening skills, so when we were going to be dealing with law enforcement, we knew that the most difficult thing in the world was to have them go from giving advice, which they've done an entire career. You sit here, you come with me. That's it. There's not a whole lot of chit-chat or what have you, is to really role play that out of them and help them understand active listening skills, because that really is the key. And almost every one of our retired officers that's gone through the program has said that if they had this skill set, they would not be on their third marriage. They wouldn't have a quarter of their pension. So it is such a gift. And with law enforcement, although I think the techniques would have been incredible for them to learn, there's a reason why that wouldn't be the first line that they would need to do, but truly so important. Most people have the answers to the questions. I don't need somebody to tell me. As I always say, husbands and wives never communicate well, and I always say, I have 2 master's degrees. Do you really think I can't figure it out? Is that I just need somebody to hear me and to just kind of be in that hole with me, not looking down on me, just in there. And to learn how to sit with silence and being able to let somebody truly know that you're there is just key to us as human beings and being able to take care of each other.
The bottom line is empathy,
Yes.
rapport, and empathy.
And most of the calls, that's where the time is spent building, is in rapport building. And nobody wants sympathy. Oh, you poor thing. No, this must be really difficult for you. It's the acknowledgement of that. And it's, and I know with the law enforcement population, it's been, when you listen to them doing their role plays, and after the role plays, the debriefings of them, and them saying, I felt so heard, like this buy-in of, no, you need to tell them, you need to do this, you need to do that when they realize that that's not where they need to go, but really feeling heard and understood, it's been key. So it's been amazing to have had this for most of my life at this point. If you think about going back 40 years ago for me, I was truly a kid. And to be able to have that as a foundation, to be able to have people like Elaine and Miguel who were part of the most difficult time in building a foundation to becoming a healthy, autonomous adult and what that would look like, and not be judged, and be able to not be perfect and to struggle with all the things that kids struggle with. And coming from Beverly, I think sometimes there is an even greater expectation of what we're supposed to do and who we're supposed to be and what have you, and all the pressures that went along with that. And kind of, like I said, in AC, I had some buoys, and that was key to all of it. And TeenLine was part of that amazing foundation. It wasn't just about, I think that I got as much answering those lines as, as the caller got, and sometimes I think I got even more than they did. So it was a blessing. No, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And to close off our show today, can one of you tell me when you truly felt the impact that this program was making? Like, when did you take a step back and really realize what a tremendous thing this is that you guys started?
There's not one particular time, because when something is growing over years, each step has its own grandeur, as it were, so that you can enjoy that moment. And that leads to thinking about what's the next thing we need to do. When we started, we had no computers, no cell phones. It was a total different time.
It wasn't a rotary phone, though. I think we need to tell everybody it was not a rotary phone.
So I can't give you one particular time. There's a series.
I think one particular event that I remember, that when we first started the line, we opened up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we had the teens there, and we were waiting for calls. And we didn't have anything to do. And every once in a while, there'd be a call and a hang-up. On a call and a hang-up. So we had to be able to create some sort of activity for the teens in the interim, and started the training, which was back-to-back training, in which one teen sat facing away from the other teen, and one teen was the listener, one teen was the caller, and give the caller the issue, and the other teen then had to listen and then be able to respond. So you had to listen to tone and affect and issue and respond to that. And then finally a call came through. And it was actually a live person on the end. And it went for several weeks before we actually got a call, because we had lots of hang-ups. And then doing that, everyone was excited. I mean, the energy went up. Oh my God, we got a call. And then another call. And then we got a repeat call. And then it began to move and develop. And at that moment, I felt that the seed had begun to germinate and begin to grow.
That was the beginning of what we call role plays. Role plays are now part of the training. They have to pass 15 role plays before they can become a listener.
On all different topics.
Different topics.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't think there's any one specific time, but I certainly know that in my career, if there hadn't been a TeenLine, there wouldn't be a COPLINE. I don't think that I would have understood. I would not have had the foundation. Honestly, I wouldn't have had the mentors to be able to contact. I know I also spoke to Dr. Schneidman to help, who is a leading thanatologist at UCLA, studier of death. He was quite brilliant in suicide. And there are just, you know, the expression, it takes a village. Well, you're looking at part of my village. And without them, we wouldn't be saving lives for police officers that truly, or a population that are so misunderstood and so overlooked. So the gift they gave to teens, a teen was able to give a gift to officers. So.
Thank you guys all here for joining me today and sharing your stories and really being true lifesavers. We really appreciate it. Our community is so indebted to all of you.
Thank you, even
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thanks very
Thank you
much.
for
Thank you, Romeo.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.